Hey guys, I'm Dov. Sorry this video took so long. It's a little later than it should have been, but had some real life stuff to deal with, and I wanted to give myself plenty of time to get my thoughts in order and make sure I did this right. In case you've been living under a rock and haven't heard, Creative Assembly has officially announced the release date for Total War Saga Troy on August 13th, 2020. It will release as an Epic Game Store exclusive for 1 year and will be free to claim during the first 24 hours after launch. Yes, so before I talk about the game, let's get this elephant out of the room. I always want to be transparent and upfront with you guys, so let me explain my bias first. I've been a lifetime Total War fan, having sunk hundreds of hours into each game since the original Shogun back in the early 2000s. There is a single, very relevant exception, Thrones of Britannia, and we'll talk more about that later. You should also know that I make a bit of money from this channel in partnership with CA covering Total War. They have provided me with free product keys in the past, and most likely will for Troy as well. I've also looked into potentially joining the Epic Game Store Creator Program, so I may end up making a bit of extra money there. I just want to be clear with you, so keep all this in mind as we move forward. My initial reaction to the news was a bit of, oh, really? Crap, I guess I actually have to make an account and download the Epic Game Store. Up to this point, Epic haven't had any exclusives enticing enough to get me on board, and as the store is objectively inferior to Steam, I haven't had any reason to use it. So I guess it's a smart move on Epic's part, as much as I don't like it. The Epic Store doesn't have a workshop yet, so we won't have direct mod support until that or the Steam release. Nevertheless, based on my extremely limited knowledge of development, mods may still be possible using third-party tools and distribution, such as Adrin's Mod Manager and sites like Nexus Mods or ModDB. Whatever the case, Creative Assembly said they're working with Epic to get mod support up and running as soon as possible. So, Troy could be for Epic mods what Skyrim was for the Steam Workshop. As for Creative Assembly themselves, they put out a blog post attempting to explain their position, which I'll have linked down below. First, it's important to note that they have no plans for other Total War titles to be exclusive. They said, quote, "In principle, we'd like future Total War titles to be simultaneously available from launch day on as many storefronts as possible." Epic apparently approached CA with their signature mountain of cash, and while CA claims it isn't the only reason for the deal, we certainly can assume it was a major reason. They say this windfall allows them to do two things. First, invest more in future Total War development, and second, release the game for free during the first 24 hours. Seems like a sound business decision on their part. And as a consumer, it's nice to get free stuff. But it also sucks to be forced to use an inferior platform. Which brings us back around to me. I'll admit, I'm conflicted. As a Total War fan, it's great to see Creative Assembly get a big money deal to fund future development. Dividing up the player base sucks, especially from a multiplayer standpoint, though while editing this, Creative Assembly confirmed they have plans for cross-platform play. As a consumer, and as someone who doesn't really like the Epic Store, it really sucks. I blame Epic, mostly, for throwing their dollars around, and for Creative Assembly, on the other hand, the deal makes a lot of sense. The studio and Total War far predates Steam, and don't want to be tied to its success or failure. It benefits them to develop decentralized distribution. If the cash infusion leads to more better Total War games down the line, then that's fantastic. I'm not angry or upset though. Given the current situation in the world, and especially the US, being mad because Epic Store bad seems absurdly trivial right now. I've seen some people speculating that Creative Assembly must think this game is not going to be good, so they're giving it away for free. I think that's more than a little ridiculous for a few reasons. Besides the financial and back-end incentives, Creative Assembly isn't trying to hide the game. By the time you're seeing this, content creators other than myself will have early access footage out for your viewing pleasure. I unfortunately couldn't attend the event, but I will be getting early access footage for you as soon as I can. Creative Assembly wouldn't be showing the game, though, if they weren't confident in their product. As for the game itself, what I've seen so far looks very interesting. Troy has grabbed my attention in a way that Thrones of Britannia never did, and I'm excited to jump in and try it. The settings and art style of Troy appeal a lot more to me. I'm a fan of history, but I also like strong, heroic characters, so that balance between history and fantasy is right up my alley. It can be tricky to strike that balance, and I think Three Kingdoms did a decent job of doing that. I'm expecting this to fall slightly more on the fantasy side, as it's set in a more mysterious and mythical age, but it remains to be seen. Speaking of Three Kingdoms, it seems the diplomacy system from that game has been imported, iterated, and improved for Troy. This was one of my favorite features for Three Kingdoms, so I'm super happy about this. More unique to Troy is the new economic system, which will feature multiple primary resources for the first time in a Total War game. Creative Assembly has also released a gameplay preview for us to take a look at. I'm not going to go through the whole video, but I wanted to pick out a couple specific things like new user interface and mechanics. In this battle, Achilles' lighter, more agile force is taking on Hector's heavies. Let's jump in and listen up.
The battlefields of ancient Greece were predominantly infantry focused. War horses on the battlefield were scarce and mainly reserved for chariots. We've designed greater distinction between the infantry classes in order to promote greater dynamic interplay.
Quickly, before he talks about the infantry variation, I want to bring your attention to some UI improvements. First, the unit cards, layout, and vocabulary should be familiar to most Total War players, and especially Total War Warhammer players. Personally, I like this style much better than Three Kingdoms, so I'm very happy about that. Game is still in development, so these stats shouldn't be taken too seriously, but one important difference to Warhammer, units seem to have much more HP and weapon damage. As we go through these next few, keep your eye on these stats and how they vary between unit types. Also, check out these icons at the bottom. Shielded units have cutouts on the side, and heavy units have the double line. Two-handed units icons are vertical. Small tweaks like this should make units much easier to identify at a glance.
Infantry have 3 weight classes: light, medium, and heavy. And the differences between them are accentuated from previous Total War titles. We have that full range at our disposal, forming up the anvil we want to hammer Hector's forces against. Greater mass means collisions are more impactful, whereas speed gives flanking a more prominent role to play. Our heavy unit also benefits from having alternate weapon modes. At the press of a button, our renowned Thean spears can put away their shields and become a much more offensive unit.
Okay, based on the stats we saw in the explanation, light infantry are fast and can hide in long grass. Those medium swordsmen had high attack, charge, and good armor. Looks like they also have armor-piercing precursor javelins, this little icon indicating AP. The heavy spears had high defense, mass, armor-piercing, and a cool alternate weapon mode. They should also have more mass on the charge. These icons are a little hard to see, but in addition to the AP, one of them must be bonus versus large, and the other is perhaps indicating the alternate weapon mode? Anyway, moving on, here he talks about how mud slows heavy units, which is a neat feature. Similar to how shallow water or forests work in Warhammer, but instead of taking size into account, it checks mass. Last, we'll finish up with this big Minotaur in combat. Achilles is going to rush in and pop a support ability, which again looks very familiar to Warhammer players. Keep your eye on the unit banners as he does, and the elite spears as they switch off shields. This is possibly my favorite UI change of all, being able to see important active effects like buffs. I'm assuming this one's healing, and the weapon switch helps you make snap decisions at a glance, increasing your ability to effectively manage your army. Personally, I'm a huge fan of these minor UI tweaks, and I really hope some of them transitioned into Total War Warhammer 3. It all looks very promising, but I'll hold judgment until I get to play it for myself. The good news is, you can too for no risk. All it costs is a few clicks and some download bandwidth. That is, if you can stand using the Epic Games Store, which I promise won't melt your face off. Probably. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. To catch my early access Troy content plus daily Warhammer multiplayer content, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell. You can find more social media links down below. Please like and share if you found this video informative or helpful. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.